Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's going on, Black people? I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. And today I wanted to talk very quickly before I head to the gym. My wife is waiting for me, so I'm not going to take much of your time. But I was curious to see how many of you have been following the indictment of Donald Trump and the fact that there is a Black person that is kind of heading this indictment. There's a Black attorney, the first Black district attorney of Manhattan. His name is Alvin. I want to say Alvin Bragg. Let me double check that, make sure I got that right. Anyway, the first Alvin Bragg, that's his name. He's the first Black DA in Manhattan, and he's leading this indictment of Donald Trump. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because there are people who are sort of talking about this and celebrating it, as a historical achievement. A Black man's leading the charge on this really historic, a situation where a former president's never been indicted, from what I understand. And this is, for some people seen as a source of pride, some sort of, like, hey, way to go, you go, boy, good job, good job. And then there are others who see this as sort of typical Democratic Party racial pandering. There are some who see it as the Democratic Party using Black people to achieve certain goals, right? Using Black people as the help, using Black people to do things that they may not necessarily want to do, or using Blackness, using the so-called racism of America to no, not the so-called racism. We know racism is real, but sort of using racism as a tool to forward and advance the agenda of the Democratic Party. So let me kind of go into this a little bit because I want to kind of give an honest assessment of some of this. Now, first of all, let me ask y'all a question. I'd be curious to know what y'all think. How many of you agree with the indictment of Donald Trump? Give me a yes in the chat if you think Donald Trump should be indicted, if this indictment makes sense, if this is a good thing, for America. Give me a yes in the chat, and let me know. Also, let me know you can hear me okay. I want to make sure that I'm coming through all right. And what's up on Instagram? Let me know on Instagram if you can hear me too. Give me a yes if you can hear me. Okay. So, okay, I see a yes, a no, yes, no, no. Okay. Yes. Yes. Vic says yes. Jason says yes. Daniel says no. Lovely Nirvana, no. Taylor made no. Okay, I'm seeing some yeses and nos. I'm seeing a really mixed response. And then K Dub says, I really don't care. I think K Dub you might be most like me in this room. I don't think indicting Donald Trump is necessarily going to make life better for Black people, and I'm concerned about Black people. Unlike a lot of our politicians, I do care about the Black community, and I want to see the Black community advance. And so, in terms of politics, if you want to know right off the bat who I vote for and what party I'm affiliated with, the answer is I'm affiliated with the Black Party. I don't vote Democrat in the election. I don't vote Republican. I vote Black. And voting Black means looking at every move and really considering strongly whether or not it benefits the Black community or not. If it does not benefit Black people, then it's not really worth my time. And I think that's really important to focus because there's so many people who do a lot of stuff. There are a lot of people who do a lot of stuff. There are a lot of Black, a lot of high Negro faces in high white spaces. There are just lots of you can go to the top of American society politically and literally find Black people standing right next to the president of the United States. You can. And you could have seen some of that even 100, 150, 200 years ago. I mean, you saw Frederick Douglass standing right next to Abraham Lincoln, right? So having Black faces in high places is not exactly something new, right? It's not like this is the first time we've seen a high profile Black attorney. I mean, now Alvin Bragg is the first Black DA of Manhattan. Sure, congratulations for him. I read his bio. He seems like a smart guy. I think he went to Harvard. That's pretty awesome. I visited Harvard last week. My buddy D1 he's a rapper and a smart guy, and he's doing a fellowship at Harvard. My wife and I were both professors. We thought we loved being in that academic environment. We thought that was really awesome. However, here's the thing that I think you got to really kind of process for a moment. This I'd be shocked if anyone could argue to me in a logical way that this prosecution wasn't just political, that this wasn't just political gang warfare. If I let me ask y'all a question. Give me a yes or no. If Donald Trump were a Democrat, do you think that Alvin Bragg would be leading the charge to prosecute Donald Trump right now? Give me a yes or no. If Donald Trump were a Democrat, would he be getting prosecuted at this moment? Yes or no? If anybody says yes, okay, Alan says yes. Alan, brother, I wish I could sit down and talk to you because this has politics written all over it. It has politics written all over it. This is a political prosecution for the most part. It does not mean Trump is not a prick. It does not mean Trump didn't break the law. Trump been breaking the law for 40 years, by the way. But go back to the 1970s when Trump was dominating the New York real estate game at a time where you couldn't really be a significant player in real estate in New York unless you were connected to the mafia, unless you were down with the mob, you wouldn't get nothing done. And that doesn't just include Sharpton. That doesn't just include Trump. That includes people like Sharpton. That's why Sharpton, it's proven he's an FBI informant. This is all documented. This is not me speculating. This is not me trying to be nasty. This is just the truth. That's because the environment in New York, particularly in the 1970s and even the 80s, was it was a shady kind of environment. Trump has been in business with Russian gangsters for 30, 40 years. That's why him being president of the United States was a national security risk, right? He's in bed financially with the Russians, right? So Trump's been breaking laws since forever. So don't get, I read something in MSNBC where there's a brother who's a political science professor. I'm not going to disrespect him at all, but he said something really like awkwardly noble, like, let me find it here. I thought it was really funny, where he was really proud that black people were kind of leading the charge to take down Trump. And he says, I can't find his quote, but he said something like, black people have always believed in the rules of fairness and justice and blah, 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 blah. And we do believe in fair. Okay, so here's what fairness looks like. Let me show y'all what fairness and justice looks like. Alvin Bragg, in case you're watching, here's what fairness looks like. Fairness says that after you prosecute Donald Trump because he allegedly paid off a porn star or something, right? I imagine it's maybe perjury or something. It's all about a payment to this porn star named Stormy Daniels. That's what it's all about. So after you go prosecute Trump for that, I want you to go and review the case of Hunter Biden. Anybody know Hunter Biden? Give me a yes if you know who Hunter Biden is. Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's crackhead son who somehow evaded all of Biden's three strikes laws that incarcerated probably 1 million black men during the 1990s, ruined millions of black families. Hunter Biden, go show me where there is nothing in the life of Hunter Biden that poses any threat to national security, that poses any sort of violation of the law, where he never ever did anything illegal that could be prosecution worthy, that could be considered to be just as bad as paying off a porn star, paying somebody money because you had sex with them. I wish, my Lord Jesus, if any of my ex-girlfriends are watching, if you ever want to write me a big $300,000 check for all the good loving that I gave you all those years, I would be more than happy. I'm definitely receiving those payments now. I would be more than happy. Even my wife approves. If you want to write me a check to thank me for all the bedroom time we spent together, just give me a call. I can give you my address right now and my routing number for my bank account. Because I'm sorry, I don't think that somebody making money for sleeping with somebody is necessarily the worst crime on earth. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying Trump didn't break the law. I told y'all Trump been breaking the law since forever. Even when Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and a lot of the Democrats and the Clintons were taking pictures with Trump before he got political, he was breaking the law back then. Trump's always been breaking the law. So stop with this, like, oh, it's the right thing to do. It's morality. No. If he was a Democrat, you wouldn't be doing it. And you know it. So here's the thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, so there's apparently at least 3 black faces. Y'all gonna have to help me because I don't know. I know the face on the left is Alvin Bragg. The face on the right is Letitia James, who is the New York State Attorney General. Alvin Bragg is the Manhattan District Attorney. Shout out to them. Education is important. Good for them. They went to school and they got these fancy jobs. That's very nice for them. I'm happy for them. Who's the lady in the middle? Can y'all tell me who the light-skinned lady in the middle is? I don't know who that is, and I should have Googled it or something, but I don't know who that lady is. So if you're on Instagram, you won't see the picture. But somebody give me her name. So I can say her name and not just say the light skinned lady in the middle. Anyway, their MSNBC is parading. They're holding the Negro Parade. Is that Georgia? The Georgia DA? Okay, thank you for that. I did not know. Atlantic District Attorney. Okay, I don't know her name though, but thank you for helping me with that. Okay, so they're what they do. Here's a prime example of why the Democratic Party has never ever really truly respected Black people. These, I'm sorry, folks. These are some distinguished, intelligent Black people. Very distinguished. I'm sure they all went to the finest law schools, made good grades, all this other stuff. But basically, you're being presented as the help. Your nickname should be the help. And the reason I call you the help is because when the Democratic Party is trying to do their dirty work or trying to go to war with the Republicans, they always love to use the struggle of Black people in the cloak of racism as extra fuel in the tank to achieve objectives specifically for the Democratic Party and not for the Black community at all. There's almost nothing that I see about Black people prosecuting Trump that on any level speaks to something that is going to be substantively beneficial to the Black community. That's all. You're the help. You're the mascot, like a football game where they got the team, the North Dakota Coyotes have a coyote in a suit and he's running around doing cartwheels and twerking and shit. Like that's what you are. You are the coyote mascot right now. And again, that doesn't mean that that's who you are. I think that you're brilliant attorneys. I'm going to interview a brilliant attorney later on today, Demario Solomon Simmons out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a good buddy of mine who's prosecuting some really great civil rights cases. I think he's the new Ben Crump in my opinion. I'm going to interview him later on today. But let me tell you, so I have respect for good Black attorneys. I respect them as good Black attorneys. But one of the things that you have to understand is that you lose your relevance in the world when you allow an overseer to turn you from this hardworking, accomplished Black person into a political puppet. A political puppet. And I understand. You're playing the game. You're playing the game. You're doing what you got to do. This is what everybody else is doing. So it must be right. It must be right because that's what everybody's doing, right? And I'm gonna tell you, I'm a thorn in your side because I'm the guy who doesn't do what everybody else is doing. I'm the guy who's not afraid to do something different from what everybody else is doing. I'm the asshole in the room who says, why in the hell would you want to do what everybody else is doing when what everybody else is doing ain't working? The shit ain't working. Your community is in shambles. It ain't working. Your wealth is going down as a community. Black wealth is going down. It ain't working. We got 55 schools in the city of Chicago where not one single child can read or do math at grade level. It ain't working. Black people own less land today than we did 100 years ago. It ain't working. You have fewer businesses than you had before integration. It ain't working. You got communities that are predominantly Black where children can't even ride their tricycles to school without having the risk of being shot. It ain't working, especially when these districts are controlled by Democrats. It ain't working. So forgive me for being the jerk in the room who's stating what I think is the obvious, but I personally find it offensive that you're trying to invoke Blackness in your little vendetta against Trump. I get it. You're a Democrat. He's a Republican. Y'all been going to war like the Crips and the Bloods since the beginning. I get it. Even the Crips and Bloods don't go to war like Democrats and Republicans. I got friends of the Crips and friends of the Bloods who can be in the same room and be cool with each other. The Democrats and Republicans are worse than the Crips and the Bloods. They're like what the Crips and the Bloods used to be before they started to elevate their consciousness and realize that we're all in the same gang. They even the Crips and the Bloods figured it out. Right. So there would be an insult to even compare that to the Crips and Bloods, because what the Democrats and Republicans are doing is using Black people as soldiers, as pawns in their political battle. That's what it is, folks. That's what it is. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Please support this platform. As you can see, when we have these conversations, we're not going to get support from mainstream media. We're not going to get support from corporations. So we need your support. So if you could just share the link with somebody that you think will enjoy this conversation, or hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because I'm probably shadow banned by now, which is why I have over 1 million subscribers. And sometimes it's hard to get 400 or 500 people in the room because they don't notify a lot of people when we go live. So if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified. Also, if you ever want to receive text messages when I go live, you can text the word voice to 31996. Text voice to 31996. That's how I can get in touch with you in case someone ever comes along and bans my YouTube channel. We are going into an election year. They are going to begin the shenanigans very, very soon. They are going to try to scare you into voting for whatever they tell you to vote for, but very, very soon. And in the middle of that, I'm going to be the guy who calls out the BS. And when I call out the BS, you never know where things are going to go politically. Okay, so ultimately, if you want to know who I'm voting for, one of the stupidest things that people do, one of the signs that tells me that you're not, that you really haven't thought these things through very much, or that you might be brainwashed, is whenever I critique what the Democratic Party is doing to Black people. First thing people say is, you must be a Trump supporter. You must be voting for Trump. You must be a Republican. Well, first of all, asshole, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't vote for either party. And that's because I have the right to do what I want to do. That's what freedom looks like, Black people. Freedom does not mean that if you don't vote for me, then you ain't Black. That ain't freedom. That's another pimp. That's Joe Biden basically politicking to be your pimp. That's him saying, "Yeah, bitch, you better show up and vote for me at the polls. You don't vote for me, you ain't Black. I'm gonna slap the Black off your face, Negro." Right? What's going on with that? What's wrong with you? And in fact, actually, when in that interview, when Biden went off the deep end and said that stupid stuff, you may or may not know, right before that interview, I was texting with Charlemagne. And I said to Charlemagne, he said, "What?" He said, "I'm interviewing Joe Biden. What question should I ask?" I said, "I'm glad you asked. Here's some things you can ask him that will probably throw him off." and so he interviewed Charlemagne. I guess he thought Charlemagne was stupid. Charlemagne's not a stupid man. He's weird. He's controversial, but he's not stupid. And he asked Biden some of the questions that I gave him, because Biden won't talk to a scholar. He won't talk to a legitimate Black scholar that's independent of political affiliation. He'll only talk to rappers in the Black community, or comedians, or entertainers. That's all he'll talk. That's why the Black community doesn't make any progress, because they run away from the Black folks who truly have ideas that are actually going to benefit the community. And they run toward Black people who are going to go along with their agenda, who are going to carry water for the party. So ultimately, one of the things that they do that I also found really interesting was how they'll do so many funny things that are such leaps in logic that are almost ridiculous. Did anybody notice when they were talking about the January 6th riots, where all those Trump supporters went to the Capitol and acted a fool, just climbed over the fences and all this other stuff? Did anybody notice how they started reflect, sort of claiming that these riots were like the racist January 6th riots, like where the racists got together and rioted on the Capitol? Like, they started using the word racism to describe the January 6th riots. And I never understood that. I never got that. I was like, what was racist about these people being mad at the government? I really didn't get that. I saw Black people in the crowd. It seems to me that if they were racist, if they were really out here like, we're going to riot the Capitol because we want to kill Black people, that the Black people in the crowd would have been the first ones to go. Why climb the fence of the Capitol to kill Black people when you could just have a lynching right there in front of the White House steps? I mean, they could have done that, right? So when they make ridiculous leaps in logic like that, like, oh well, the January 6th riots were racist. That right there shows you how they'll make these ridiculous leaps in logic, because they know that what you've gone through is very powerful. They know that you have a lot of moral high ground that they're allowed to borrow, that they can leverage in order to get elected. They know that they have a lot of emotional bells and whistles and chains they can yank to get you to show up to the polls. So one of the things that they consistently do is they will take anything they don't like about the Republicans, and they will twist it into, well, this is racist, 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 right? And so here's the thing. I know racism's real. I know racism's out there. But two things I don't believe is, number one, I don't believe the Democratic Party has ever done anything substantial to alleviate racism in America. You've only exacerbated it. You've only told Black people that if you come over here and get under our cloak and let us tell you what to do, then you'll be safe from the people that are coming to get you. That's emotional manipulation. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, I believe that racism is related to things that have nothing to do with some of the things that the Democratic Party will talk about. I think that the whole Black Lives Matter movement was a complete waste of time. It was a great opportunity to really address real racism in America, but you missed it. You missed it because you let other people hijack a movement that belonged to you. You let other people hijack a legitimate movement toward true racial equity, fairness, and justice, and they made it into this Marxist, socialist, whatever. And the thing is, again, this is where I become the asshole in the room. We went to the Black Lives Matter website. Y'all remember that? I don't know if y'all remember that, but we went to the Black Lives Matter website and specifically read their agenda. I said, let's read this and let's see exactly what they're seeking to do. And we saw a whole lot of conversation that y'all didn't ask for. We saw a whole lot of conversation. We saw them talking more about being transgender than we saw about them talking about the real struggles of Black families. We saw a whole lot of stuff about gayness and feminism and women's rights, and all those things are important. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing against any of that. I'm not a person who's anti nothing. But at the end of the day, I'm like, why are you trying to take a Black movement and turn it into a trans movement? Why are you trying to take a Black movement and make it into a liberal thing and make it into a, because I know a lot of good Black people, some of whom are liberal, and some of those good Black people are conservative. And I am not going to abandon my conservative friends just because they don't want to vote for the Democratic Party. I'm just not. I have conservative friends who are blacker than yo raggedy ass. You remember I'm talking about Black Lives Matter this and Black Lives Matter that? I got conservative friends who can triple down on your blackness any day of the week, who are 100 times blacker than your raggedy ass. Seriously, I got conservative friends who love the hell out of a Black woman. I got conservative friends who are raising strong Black families. I got conservative friends who are educating their children, who are starting businesses, who are buying land, who are adding real value in the Black community. So how dare you tell me that somehow being a Republican means you can't be Black no more? That's silly. That's ridiculous. That's you. If you come in there talking that nonsense, that tells me you've allowed them to hijack your Blackness. They've stolen your Blackness from you, and now you're paying rent to live in a house that you're supposed to own. You're paying rent. You've allowed them to move into your house and become your landlord. And now you're a renter again when you should have been the owner of that house. I own my intellectual house. I pay the mortgage in this bitch. You're not going to come into my intellectual house and control none of this. Brainwashing is not allowed. My wife is an expert on the subconscious mind, by the way, and we talk all the time about how Black people are consistently manipulated subconsciously, particularly by the politicians. It is atrocious. It is atrocious. My wife read this book. There was this 300-page. My wife is very smart Black woman. She reads 22 books a year, and these are not children's books. She reads 300, 400, 500-page books, 22 of them per year. I don't know how she does it, but she pulls it off. One book she read, and in case you don't know, my wife's a full professor of social work, by the way, and she's also a therapist, a licensed therapist. So she understands a lot about the human mind. And one of the things that we talk about is that she'd read this book. I'm gonna put her website up here if you ever want to look into what she's doing, because we have to support our Black women when they're doing great stuff. So I'm gonna put her URL up on the screen if you want to see it. There it is, coachingwithdralicia.com. All right. So anyway, so one thing we were talking about was, I said she had read this book on the subconscious mind. She read it like 3 times. She said, I can't stop reading this book. And I said, wow, that's amazing. And I said, what are the 3 things that have the greatest impact on the subconscious mind? And 3 things that she mentioned were, I want you to write this down, and I want you to try to identify when either Democrats or Republicans use these tools, or when radio stations use these tools, or when corporations use these tools. Okay. The first is trauma. The second is repetition. And the third is symbolism. She said, if you want to brainwash people, use those 3 things: trauma, repetition, symbolism. So let me ask you this. Who's the most traumatized group of people in America? What do y'all think? Black people. We have trauma just in our blood, in our DNA. Trauma is just everywhere. Everybody traumatized, right? You grew up especially if you grew up like in the crack era, and you saw your parents get hooked on drugs, or your relatives going to prison for drugs, or your friends getting murdered over drugs, or you growing up in the hood where you before you're 18, 3, 4 of your friends done got shot and killed. Like the trauma is huge, right? So we're heavily traumatized. So trauma does brainwash you. It does impact your subconscious mind. Trauma is the reason that Black people have a harder time doing things like starting businesses and things like that, because that requires taking on risk. That requires walking toward risk. Traumatized people have a hard time doing that because you're scared. Okay. So trauma is big, and trauma is used by politicians to scare the shit out of Black people every election. Mark my words. Mark my words. In 2020, it was all about the pandemic and Republicans are going to come kill you. And then suddenly all these random racial justice riots just suddenly broke out during the summer of 2020. Anybody remember that? Anybody remember that? And then it disappeared. If you notice, after the election, all those riots and everything just kind of went away, right? That's because it was orchestrated. That's because they planned all this. This was all planned, right? Now, whether the pandemic was planned, China about that. But if you talk about those riots, it's like a thunderstorm that just magically appears, and then as soon as the election's over, it just clears up and the sun comes out again, right? You can't tell me that somebody's not pulling some strings with that. The second is repetition. One area where I see repetition is in the music. That's one example. If you have some lyrics, kill that Negro, kill that Negro, kill that Negro, kill that Negro, and you have a 9-year-old repeating these lyrics over and over, or Molly Percocet, or whatever they have them repeating. Well, then that's going to sink into the subconscious mind of that child. So it's no coincidence that you have young people that are ruining their lives. Irresponsible sex, getting every STD in the book, where you won't be able to have any children because because you've done so much damage to your body, because you think that just free and easy sex and babies, mamas, and all that is the way to go. Or you see young people ruining their lives, maybe financially, or graduating from school without hardly any education. You know all the Cardi B lyrics, but somehow you can't read and write. How in the hell does that happen? How in the hell can you go into a building called a school? I don't get this. Seriously, this is what I want to ask the city of Chicago, as well as any other city that's poorly educating Black children. Many of them are run by your favorite Democratic Party. I need to understand how a child can walk into a building at 8 in the morning and come out every day at 3, and literally do that every day. That's how many hours a day? 7 hours a day, 35 hours a week. 35 hours a week over a course of a year is about 1,500 hours a year. Over a course of a decade, that's 15,000 hours. So over the course of a 12-year educational experience, you're talking about maybe 18,000 hours. How in the hell can a child spend 18,000 hours inside a building and come out of that building and not know how to read, not know how to write, not know how to do math, not know anything about money? And they're going to need money. They're going to really need money one day. They're going to be starving. They're going to be hungry. Their children are going to need money. The children are going to need resources. They don't have a damn clue how to obtain resources in this society. Does anybody ever wonder that? Like, really, I'm really curious. I mean, and I get it. You want to teach them about pronouns, and you want to teach them, the periodic table and all this other crap. This other crap that literally will have no value to them whatsoever. Am I the only person who just sees how stupid that is? How crazy that is? How ridiculous that is? I mean, don't get me wrong. There's always a debate. Is it the teachers or is it the parents? It's all of that. It's all of that. I mean, it takes a village to destroy a child. It takes a village to destroy a child. So everybody's responsible. We're all responsible. So let's forget about trying to blame people. That's the political side. They don't want you to fix the problem. They want you to figure out who to blame. As long as you don't blame it on me, then I don't care about the problem. But I really feel like one common sense thing to do, like, again, Alvin Bragg, if you really want to do something for Black people, I don't give a shit about you prosecuting Trump. I just don't. It doesn't make you my hero. It doesn't make you some sort of historical Black figure. It doesn't. It's maybe in the minds of some, maybe for brainwashed people it does, but for me it does not. For me, it makes you a political pawn, which diminishes your legacy. Letitia James, it diminishes your legacy that you allow yourself to be dumbed down and used as a political pawn, because I believe you're smarter than that. I believe that if you had the ability and the resources to be independent, if you had economic resources in your family, real economic resources to allow you to develop real infrastructure around yourself, you wouldn't have to go let people use you up like a $2 hoe in order to achieve their political gains. So to me, one of the reasons that Black people make such convenient political pawns is partly because we don't have institutional infrastructure that allow us to affiliate ourselves with institutions that serve a legitimate Black purpose. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to say that again slowly so you understand what I'm saying. The reason that you make convenient political pawns is because you don't have institutional and economic resources that allow you to attach yourselves to institutions that will take the talent that you have and use that for a purpose that legitimately and meaningfully serves the Black community at multiple levels in society. Seriously, you don't. Now, somebody's in here talking crazy. Let me get rid of this person real quick because he's stupid. You come here talking stupid, that means you're not smart enough to be part of this conversation. So you got to go, buddy. I'm sorry. This conversation is for intelligent Black people only. If you're an idiot, then take your dumb ass home. All right. So do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, share, subscribe. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I do have a new book out. It's on Amazon if you'd like to go take a look. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It is a bestseller on Amazon right now. It's 10 specific rules to allow you to develop that economic infrastructure in your family so that your kids are not having to grow up and become political pawns. They're able to do what they want to do and do the work that actually matters instead of feeling like they have to get permission from somebody else. One of the best things about having independent Black wealth, and that's what my children do have and will have, is that independent wealth allows you to really do what's right. You know, like that political science professor made that comment about how, you know, having Black people leading the charge against Trump shows that Black people have always been committed to fairness and doing what's right. Well, I'm not saying that that's wrong to prosecute Trump. I don't care about Trump. What I'm saying, though, is that out of all the long list of things you could do on behalf of the Black community that will be defined as doing the right thing, I don't put prosecuting a Republican as anywhere near the top of the list. I don't see serving a political party as high on our agenda. I don't know a lot of Black people, you know, who are struggling financially or otherwise, who would say, yeah, I really want our most powerful and intelligent Black leaders to put all their energy into a symbolic prosecution of a former president to make sure Joe Biden or whoever, Kamala, can win the next election. I don't see that as the top of the priority list. So here's the deal. The reason I've really shared with you guys, like, you got to rethink the whole educational process for your kids, is that I need you to understand your kids, if they learn how to develop institutions, then what that does is that gives them that ability to detach from all this other nonsense and attach to something that allows them to do work that has a direct laser-like impact on the people that they actually care about. You get to guide the Death Star. You get to decide which way the ship is going to go. You get to own and drive the car. You're not just riding in a car that's driven by somebody else. These people, these prosecutors, God bless them. I'm sure they're very hardworking. They all seem super smart. My God, I wouldn't want to be the Attorney General of New York. You got to be smart to do that. These prosecutors are brilliant assets in the Black community. These are assets. These are highly educated lawyers who are capable of doing anything, but because they don't have their own institutions, they've been hijacked and used to serve somebody else's purpose. They've been reduced from being potential Black leaders to simply becoming the help. You were meant to be Batman. They turned you into Robin. You could have been Michael Jordan. They made you into maybe a Scottie Pippen. Right? That's what they did. They take our best and brightest and hijack them from the community. This is the brain drain. The brain drain. Imagine if you had an Alvin Bragg and a Letitia James and this other lady, I don't know her name, but I know she's the DA of Georgia. Imagine if you had these individuals and they were working on behalf of the Black community relentlessly every single day. Imagine if they said, you know what? I grew up in a neighborhood where there were tons and tons and tons of Black people that went to prison during the Joe Biden war on drugs, the Bill Clinton mass incarceration era. And I'm going to spend all my time getting these people out of prison so they can come home to their daddies. Or, you know, so they can come home to their children. These daddies can come home to their kids. Mamas can come home and be with their babies. You know, the community can get these people back. Imagine that. That would be, to me, that would be progress. That's progress. Or imagine if they said, you know, we're going to go get together, we're going to build a school, and we're going to educate, over the next 10 years, we're going to educate 50,000 Black children so they can go on into the world and really do amazing things and become extraordinary. See, it requires institutions for you to be able to do that. Because if you don't, let me give you an example. I knew a lady who got a PhD. Black folks we've gotten really good at getting degrees. We've gotten really good at getting, you know, JDs, MDs, you know, BAs, BSs, and lots of letters behind our name to make us feel like we're better than other people. A lot of us, I got letters behind my name. My letters are PhD and BA and BS. I got a whole lot of letters, right? And then I got DR in the front, right? And it's legit. I went to the Ohio State University, got my PhD in finance. I knew this lady who had a PhD in education, and she loved Black people. She loved Black children. She had a heart for Black babies, and she was the perfect educator for Black children because she does something that only Black women can do. She had the skill to educate them, but she also brought in that really important ingredient, the most important ingredient in the educational process, which is love. Like she really loved those kids. And I understand this. I struggled in school, and it wasn't because I couldn't do the work. Clearly, I could have done the work. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have anybody guiding me. What happened was I went to that school. I felt like I was going to prison. I felt like I was being around people all day who did not love me, who did not care about me. So if you don't care about me, I'm not going to respond to you. I didn't realize about that about myself till I was about 40. Okay. So she had love and skill. Perfect educator. Like could right there in that class of all the greatest educators of all time for black, the Mary McLeod Bethune kind of love for black babies, right? So here's what happens. She ended up, Fannie Willis is her name. Thank you for helping me with that ministry before industry. I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget her name next time I put it on the screen. All right, so here's what she does. She graduates with her degree. She goes and gets a job at a private charter school. The school has mostly black children in it, but the school is completely run by white people. This is the overseer model of education. So you got to remember, managing Negroes is very profitable. Managing black people is more profitable than managing chickens. It's more profitable than managing sheep. It's more profitable than managing cows. So managing young black children in a school is very profitable. That's why these Chicago public schools that are not educating kids are very happy to have them in their school, because they get a check for every single child that's in that school, whether that child gets educated or not. They're picking up their check. Just like no different from those towns that love to have the penitentiary there. They love having the penitentiary because they get a check for every head that's in that state prison. So this is a common thing. We are the food for capitalism. So she goes and she works for this school that is a charter school with nothing but black kids, but it's run by white folks. And white folks are not just doing all the teaching, they're doing all the administrating. They're also the ones who are doing all the vending. So those who vend in the cafeteria, that's a white-owned company. Those who are writing the textbooks, it's another white-owned company. Any supplies that the school needs, where they're taking all this money that the government's giving them and buying supplies from vendors, white, wiggity, wiggity, white. And the commodity that is being bought and sold, just like slavery, the commodity, the pawns that are being used to make this money are young black children. So she comes into school and she's thinking, I love these black babies. I'm going to really pour my heart and soul into the school. So let me tell you what happens. So she goes in and she does everything you expect. She forms a connection with the kids. They love her. She's their favorite teacher because she's their only black teacher. She's working overtime. She's buying school supplies for the kids that don't need it, doing all the things that, y'all know what it means. Y'all know what it looks like when a black woman really loves you like that, right? And you know what happens? One day, out of the blue, they call her in their office and they said, "You're fired." And she had to go. And she's devastated. She called me because she was devastated. I'm not gonna say her name, but she called me because she was devastated. And she said, "I can't believe it." And she's crying. And she says, "I put all my heart and soul into these kids, and I put so much work in, and they fired me, and blah, 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 blah." I don't know why they fired. I don't know if it was budget cuts or maybe they didn't like her. I don't know what it was. But I just remember I said, see, that's why we have to own our own schools. That's why you have to have your own space. I know what that feels like. I taught at Syracuse University. When I was at Syracuse University, the black students all came, they gravitated toward me. They all started hearing about me because I was on TV and stuff. So they all came to me. They all formed connections with me and all this other stuff. But that wasn't my institution. I couldn't decide how things were going to happen at Syracuse. I couldn't decide if I was going to stay or go. In fact, when things got tense, it was time for me to go. And I gladly went, and they were happy to see me go. But do you think anybody's ever going to fire me from running the Black Business School? Really, is anybody ever going to fire me from the Black Business School? No, they're not. I don't have to worry about job security because I created my own job. I built this institution. What else? If I think about the quality of the work that I'm doing for the Black community, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about having laser impact on the people that you care about. Where do you think I'm having the most impact on Black people? I've been with the Black Business School, where we have used things like internet technology and millions of dollars of investment that we've bootstrapped over the years to be able to teach over 10 million Black people how to invest. Or do you think I had a greater impact when I was teaching 30 black, maybe teaching 10 black students a year at Syracuse University? Literally, when I was at Syracuse, I would have 30 students per class. I would have like 3 classes a semester. So let's say that's 90. I had 2 semesters. I teach about 180 to 200 students. Maybe 10 of those students are black. Where do you think I have the most impact on the people I care about? In the black owned institution that has a specific agenda and purpose, where all of our core values are centered around what we call the black core of 3. The core values are: we believe black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support black business. Am I having more of an impact on the black community doing what I'm doing now, or when I had that fancy position at Syracuse, when I was doing something different 15, 20 years ago? So what I'm saying to you is that the lack of institutions in your community is one of your greatest liabilities at this particular juncture. Because what happens is that every time you have a genius or a leader or somebody that with extraordinary potential that comes out of some university and they say, I'm down, I'm going to help my people, I want to help my people, they immediately get distracted. They immediately get deployed to become a pawn for someone else's institution. They end up, whether it's working for somebody's corporation or it's working, becoming a political pawn for the Democratic Party, right? Because there's plenty of butter biscuits over there. And what I'm saying is that at some point, there should be an army of young black people who are working to develop institutions that have a specific black agenda, that are laser focused on the black community, and measure themselves on whether or not they're seeing actual progress in what they're doing. Like in the Black Business School, we measure, like, what is our stock market participation rate? How are your families doing? How many families are actually doing better economically because they were hanging out with us? How are our children learning economics at a faster rate than other people's children, right? So it's not just about what you can do, it's what you actually do and where you apply your energy that makes the difference. Like, I can have the strongest laser in the world, but if that laser is pointed at the wrong target, then it's as if I had no laser at all. So the danger in America is not so much just the uneducated black person. It is the miseducated black person who's misapplied their education in such a way that black people ain't got nothing to do with it. And I'm here, again, being the asshole in the room, to say that I cannot for the life of me understand how having our most brilliant black lawyers spending their time prosecuting a Republican is helping the black community on any substantive level, when those same people won't say a word about reparations. I'd rather see these black lawyers getting together and putting together, doing what Johnny Cochran was doing before he died, and putting together the most epic reparations lawsuit in history, supporting people like Dr. Claude Anderson, who've been suing the government for reparations for many, many decades. He can't get no help on his reparations lawsuit, but yet y'all spending all this energy, all this legal firepower, being a political pawn, basically becoming the help. This is not an insult to those individual people. This is really talking about how systems and institutions shape your agenda. Like, so for example, when I spoke about Lizzo years ago, and the white media kind of got mad at me for saying that I don't think that it's helpful to black women to have to pay a woman to go and promote racial stereotypes and to promote obesity in a community where obesity is killing hundreds of thousands of black people a year. They got mad at me for that. Because they tried to shape that as, oh, you're anti-Lizzo, you're attacking Lizzo. That's their cover, that's their shield, right? They use that to basically deflect from the fact that they're the ones actually using Lizzo to pursue their own agenda. It is the white liberals who came up with this whole idea that somehow being fat and out of shape and destroying your body and killing yourself early is body positivity. Ain't nothing. I know many obese people who died of heart attacks at the age of 38. Ain't nothing body positive about being an obese alcoholic who runs around wanting to sleep with everybody. Ain't nothing good about that. My wife, again, she's one other thing she's done lectures on are all the stereotypes historically that white people have had of black women that degrade black women. She talks about the mammy, she talks about the Jezebel, she talks about the sapphire, she talks about all these stereotypes, the angry black woman, all these stereotypes that harm you, and you're paying a black woman to promote all those stereotypes. So this ain't about me versus Lizzo. That was your deflection. That was how you wanted to shape it, because what you're using divide and conquer. Because you know good and well that if me and her got on the phone, I'm a nice guy. I am a nice guy. I can fight like hell, but I'm a nice guy. I would have got on the phone and said, look, here's what I'm really trying to say. I think you are so talented. I think you are so beautiful. I think you are so capable of being extraordinary. You play the flute. Well, guess what? My wife plays the flute. Here, why don't you talk to my wife too? My wife plays the flute just like you. But let me just tell you, my wife can play the flute, and she doesn't ever think about having to twerk while she's playing the flute in order to make white people happy. I think that you should have the same rights as Adele to be you could be a plus size woman. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm not making fun of that at all. So you could Adele is also a plus size woman, but you'll never see Adele twerking or holding a liquor bottle and simulating sucking a man's penis in front of children just so she can get attention, just so she can get another record deal. They'll never do that to Adele. I don't think that they should do that to you. But unfortunately, that conversation never happened. Why? Because people get used as pawns. They were like, okay, wait, here's an intelligent black man who's disrupting our agenda to control the black community with our narratives and and the things that we want to pursue. So we're going to vilify him and make this him versus Lizzo. Oh, he hates black women because he didn't co-sign on every stupid thing that we got this lady doing. No, I don't. I don't co-sign on that nonsense, because you can't sit here and argue with me that promoting obesity to black people is going to keep them alive. Then the next minute you're up here talking about using the COVID agenda. Well, black people are dying of COVID. They're dying more than everybody else. Well, why are they dying? Oh, because of obesity. Black people have a higher incidence of obesity. Then why the hell were you promoting obesity just a couple months ago? Why were you telling me that obesity is a good thing just a couple months ago? And now you're up here, now you're going to a different agenda. Again, using you as pawns. Anybody remember when the pandemic started? Again, the use of black people as pawns is extraordinary. It is at an epic all-time high. Did anybody notice how during the pandemic, whenever they were trying to get everybody to get the jabs, they were using black people in those commercials? Merck had a commercial. I was listening on the radio. Girl, this was like last week. This is 3 years after. I just want my family to be safe. Girl, yeah, I know, girl. Did you get your shot? It was another. They use black people. You get used more than anybody else, and the reason people can use you is because you don't have your own institution. You don't have your own wealth. That's it. Can't nobody use me. When they've tried to use me, it doesn't work because you offer me $10,000 to do something. I get bored. I'm like, no, I got better ways to make money that doesn't require me selling my soul. And what I'm hoping is that in our generational play, this is not going to happen overnight. It takes time to build institutions. It takes time to build power. I'm hoping that you'll understand me when I'm asking you to ensure that your children understand how to build their own institutions, how to generate their own wealth, how to own land and property and businesses so that they're not going to be easily manipulated by somebody's agenda. When a pimp is looking for a hoe, when a pimp is looking for a good hoe, he's not going to look for the lady who knows who she is. He's not looking for the lady who's got plenty of education. He's not looking for the girl that's got a lot of self-esteem. He's not looking for the young lady who's got a strong father. He's not looking for the young lady who's got plenty of independent wealth. He's not looking for a woman like that. Women like that are hard to pimp. You can't pimp a woman who knows who she is and has high self-esteem and good values and a support system and her own and a place to go and plenty of money in her pocket. You can't pimp a woman like that. What does he look for? The pimp looks for the young lady or the young man who is lost, who's ignorant, who doesn't have a nickel in their pocket, who's hungry, who's struggling, right? Because at that point, that person's desperate. They'll do anything for a couple dollars. They'll do anything for a cheeseburger, right? Even things that are unspeakable. They'll do unspeakable things just to have a place to stay. And then they'll walk away thinking that you actually love them. So black people, you're economically desperate. That's why your best and brightest, some of your smartest black people in America who went to the best law schools are gladly allowing themselves to be used as political pawns because they're economically desperate. They have nowhere to go. They don't have any independent wealth and power. They affiliate themselves with these things. They're scared to death to speak truth. They'll sit quietly with their friends and mumble the truth and mumble about the issues of their bosses and overseers, but they won't say it publicly. Why? Well, because they're afraid. They're afraid that if they get out of line, they're going to lose that job. They're going to lose that money. They're going to lose that opportunity. They're going to lose that platform. They're going to lose all those things. Well, what if they had independent money, independent platforms, independent everything? If you have all that, then you don't have to let yourself be used by other people in order to get access to what they've got. So Black people need to understand what it means to have real power instead of living off of borrowed power. Knowing what it means to actually own things as opposed to renting the things that you need. When you are a highly educated Black person who spends their whole life working for white people, you're basically renting power. You don't have real power. I use the analogy of this lamp. I used that analogy before. This lamp is bright. It's lighting up. It's lighting up my face, but this lamp does not have any real power. If you don't understand electricity, you might say, "Wow, that lamp has a lot of power. It's illuminating. It's I hit the button and it turns on and all this other stuff." But the lamp doesn't actually have any power. The lamp gets its power from the power source. So if I were to unplug the power source, then the lamp no longer has power. So a Black person that appears to have power, like you're the DA of Manhattan and you're the Attorney General of New York and you got all this so-called power. I don't really pay attention to the power. I look at the power source. It's like when I was a track coach and I used to coach like kids between the ages of 9 and 18. One thing I learned is that usually when a kid acts a certain way, it's not the kid who's doing it, it's the parent, right? So whenever we would have parents day, we'd bring parents to track practice. I would meet the parent and I would say, "Oh, now I know. Now I understand why your child is an asshole," right? Or now I know why that child's so well behaved. He's got a good mother and a good father, and they teach them good values, right? So it's not. So I don't look at the child when the child's talking. I think about the mama and the daddy. I think about the parent. I think about from where they came from, the power source. So to some extent, the same thing happens here. When you see a Black person that's in some Negro that's the Black face in a high place, that's doing and saying things that don't make any sense. Don't look at them. They don't have any power. You look at the power source. Oh, the reason you're pumped up about prosecuting Donald Trump is because your benefactors, the people that pay the bills, the people that control you, are telling you that this is something that has to be at the top of your priority list. So what I want to see from Black people is I don't want us to just be the transmitters of someone else's power. I want us to understand what it means to really be the power source. And being the power source is hard. It takes time. It takes patience. It requires investment. It requires sacrifice. It's not just, "Oh, I'm going to go to school and then somebody's going to hire me for a great job, or I'm going to become a great basketball player and get a deal playing for the Dallas Mavericks." No, the Dallas Mavericks is not independent Black power for Black people. The Dallas Mavericks is independent power for Mark Cuban. Why? Well, because he actually took the time to actually figure out how to own the damn team. He owns it. Jerry Jones. People, I saw, what was it? Somebody, oh, I know what it was. Somebody was talking about LeBron. LeBron brought up a good point. LeBron said, the way y'all went off on Kyrie Irving for speaking up or for doing what he did on Twitter, I want you to have that same smoke for Jerry Jones. I want Jerry Jones to go through the same thing that Kyrie Irving went through. I want y'all to go get him the way y'all went to go get Kyrie, because remember Jerry Jones took the picture. Jerry Jones is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones was in that picture from the 1950s where the Black kids were trying to get into the school, and all the white boys were trying to intimidate them. He was one of the men in that group. Well, Jerry Jones never really apologized for that picture, from what I understand. And one thing that LeBron maybe forgot in that discussion that I think a lot of us forget is that you don't understand the difference between being the employee of the organization and being the owner of the organization. Employees have to apologize if the owner tells them to do it. Owners don't have to apologize for anything. The only people they might have to apologize to are the customers of the company. And last time I checked, Dallas Cowboys fans don't give a damn that Jerry Jones is in this picture in the 1950s. All they care about is whether the team is winning. And even they don't even care about that because the Cowboys ain't been winning for 30 years. But they're worth $8 billion. That's an $8 billion asset. And how did Jerry Jones get that power? Well, he made a sacrifice. He sacrificed 30 years ago. He put up 150 million, bought that team. Now that team is worth what is that? Is that 150 million worth what, about 40 times more, 60 times more than what it was when he bought it? He made an investment. He grew an asset. Just like the Hallis family bought the Chicago Bears for $500 100 years ago. Building independent power requires you to make investments. You cannot have power in 2023 when you start your plan in 2022. But you can have power in 2045 by making a plan that begins in 2023. Do you understand what I'm saying? And when you build that independent institution, when you have that business that's yours and you built it from the ground up, then guess what? The rules don't apply to you in the same way they do if you were an employee. So this whole idea, again, going back to what this political science professor said about all these black prosecutors prosecuting Trump, he said, black people have always believed in fairness and justice and blah blah blah, and that right there is a massive liability that we have. Right, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not saying justice is bad. What I'm saying is, do you really think? How many of y'all believe? How many of y'all are crazy enough to believe that America is a fair society? How many of y'all believe that life is fair? Give me a yes if you believe life is fair. Give me a no if you don't. What do y'all think? Is life fair? If I just do the right thing and and just follow the rules, am I going to get everything that I deserve? Who in the hell told you life was fair? That's a fairy tale. That is a maybe the word they use the word fair because that is a fairy tale. That is a fairy tale. We believe in fairness and justice, and that's an equality. But get that nonsense out of your head. Ain't no powerful people in this country believing in all this fairness and justice and equality. They're fighting to win. That's why books like Powernomics are so important. You have to learn how to fight to win. So at the end of the day, let me just summarize on this, and then I'm gonna be done. My wife is waiting for me. If you want to win the game of power in America, you have to have institutions. You build institutions by making long-term sacrifices and investments. Building institutions is not the sexiest thing in the world. You start that business, people will make fun of you and they'll say, how's your little raggedy business doing? When you try to create something of your own, nobody believes it matters until you show them that it matters. When I decided to leave an institution, Syracuse, to create an institution of my own, whether it's the Black Business School or even getting people to care about the name Dr. Boyce Watkins and all this other stuff, didn't nobody give a damn about that. Nobody respected that. I had to make them respect that. And how did I make them respect that? Well, because I decided early, I was the first investor in every vision that I have. I was the first person to commit to it. I was the first person to believe in it. I was the first person to see it as $1 million, billion-dollar entity. I was the first person who said, you know what? I'm willing to die on this hill all alone if I have to. But every ounce of energy that I have when I wake up in the morning is going to be put into pouring into this thing that I'm trying to build, pouring into making this vision real. That's it. That's it. This is me. This is all I got. This is what this little ugly baby that don't nobody see but me. It's a delusion right now. I'm holding an ugly baby. I'm like the lady. I'm like the person sitting in the alley holding a little invisible baby and feeding the baby invisible milk. And everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy and feeling sorry for me. They're like, wait, you're doing your own thing because what? Because white people don't want to hire you? No, this is where I really want to be. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure. But I'm sure if you could be affiliated with what they got going on, you would do that, right? But you're just pretending like you're being delusional. Maybe I am. Maybe I am delusional. But I kept feeding this little ugly baby, and guess what? The baby started to grow, and then next thing you know, the baby it's getting all my time and attention. Y'all good mothers and fathers understand this. That baby that's getting all my time and attention that I didn't abandon, because if I'd abandoned the baby would have died. If I'd abandoned the baby and said, you know what, I'm going to put my energy into something that's already real, somebody else's institution, then what I started here would have died, right? So you can't do both. It's very, very hard to be used as a pawn in someone else's institution while simultaneously truly pouring into your own. It's always going to be a distraction. Why? Well, because if I go work for that white man, I'm going to be spending 30, 40 hours a week putting time into his vision, pouring into what he created, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to understand what that looks like. And a lot of times we want to take shortcuts. We want that scenario where we go get the degree and then go get the fancy job. And then suddenly, boom, you're at the top of something special. Look at me. I'm a senior manager at Google. Google ain't yours. That belongs to Sergey Brin and Larry, what's his face? Larry Miller or whatever his name was. Larry something. Larry and Serge. Larry and Serge are that's their institution. They can use it to support their community. You're a pawn. You're a piece to the puzzle. That doesn't mean you're not important. Doesn't mean you're not doing good work. Doesn't mean you're not great at what you do. It just means that's not your company. That's their company. So they're going to do what they want to do. So what I really want you to understand is that if you look at any great institution in America, Larry Page, thank you. If you look at every great institution in America, from Google to the Dallas Cowboys, if you go back far enough in the history of that institution, there was always somebody sitting there feeding the ugly baby, the ugly invisible baby. Every institution, look at Walmart. Sam Walton was feeding the ugly baby, the ugly invisible baby, back in the 1950s and 60s, and that baby grew into a behemoth. Now all of his children are multi-billionaires, all of them. He got grandkids that are billionaires, nephews. This man has so much money, it was sick. It was absolutely sick. So invest in yourself, build your own institutions, commit to that, and believe in that. Teach that to your children. Teach them there are skills you can pick up. I'm gonna give you the last thing I'm gonna give you before I let you go. This is something we teach in our Black Millionaires of Tomorrow program for kids. We actually have a Black business school for children. If you want to learn about it, just go to my website, boycewatkins.com. We have all kinds of stuff there. And the acronym is STURDY. And the Y doesn't mean anything, but it just sounds good. And it's spelled STERDY. STERDY. This is what I consider to be the standard curriculum for Black children. I actually wrote about it also in my new book. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. I explain the STURDY model in this book as well. STURDY stands for the things that if I'm raising a Black child right now I'm 51, I'm not having any more kids, but your kids, hopefully I can help you raise yours. So if I want to raise a Black child to be institutionally powerful, I teach them the STURDY model and make them memorize this. It won't take long. It'll probably take 20 minutes for them to learn it and memorize it. The S stands, so give them $10 or something and to memorize it, and they'll do it. The S stands for systems. If they understand systems, then they can understand how to operate at a systematic level. The reason the United States has so much power is because of things like industrialization, the systematizing of things, right? Henry Ford was able to develop systems that mass produce cars. That allowed him to mass produce wealth. People that think on a systematic level are able to get things done better than people who can't think on a systematic level, who think in a one-off level. So, for example, racism is powerful because it's systematic. They'll put it in the whole system. Joe Biden's incarceration plan was powerful because it was systematic. He said, let's get $10 billion. He didn't say, let's go get a couple of really good cops and go and arrest a couple hundred people, right? He didn't say that. He said, let's be systematic. I need $10 billion to build 100 prisons and put 100,000 cops on the street. That's what he did. And systematically, he was able to annihilate a big chunk of the Black community, a big chunk of what he perceived to be the problem, by thinking about things on a systematic level. So that's why I say, to fight against mass incarceration, you have to have a systematic solution. This one-off solution, one Black leader doing one thing or one piece of symbolism at a time, that's never going to solve the problem of systematic racism. So systems have more power than individuals, right? So teach your child to think in a systematic level. Like, so when they say, well, what career should I have when I grow up? Well, have them think about, like, well, what is your economic system going to be? What is the system going to be behind your business that's going to allow you to make money? That's how people get rich. The T stands for technology. If a child understands technology really well, they can scale up that business. That's where billionaires come from. That's how Elon Musk does it. He takes systems and technology and he just scales it. And then when you have technology, especially in the world of AI, that's going to be really important. So if you understand technology, you're going to get ahead of people who don't. The E stands for entrepreneurship. If you are a person that understands systems and technology, like let's say your child's great at engineering or mathematics, if they also think in an entrepreneurial capacity, have the creativity of an entrepreneur, that child is going to be able to take their ideas to levels that they can never take them if they're simply trying to become somebody's employee. The difference between Steve Jobs and the people that gave him his technology and gave him what he needed was that he went to these engineering nerds that knew how to build computers, and he took what they had, and he would, as an entrepreneur, he'd buy it from them for $50 and sell it for $500. Right? That's an entrepreneurial mindset. Entrepreneurs, they think more creatively. They're able to build their own businesses. They're more likely to fill out an LLC than they are to fill out a job application. So teach your kids to be entrepreneurs. The R stands for relationships. Teamwork is critically important for building wealth. Most wealth is gang affiliated. So if you don't have a gang, if you don't have a clique, if you don't have a crew, if you don't have a group of people around you, starting with your family, that you can build wealth with, it's going to be much harder for you to do it by yourself than it is for you to build it as a group. Well, that's where relationship management comes into play. That means no room for prima donnas and people thumping their chest, talking about how I'm the better than you and I'm the greatest and I'm the most important person in the room all the time, and all this other stuff, all this nonsense about I'm the alpha and all this other crap. No, be a good fucking person. If you're a good human being that understands how to add value to the lives of others, how to repair relationships with other people, how to be a decent enough person that people want to work with you, then you're going to be able to build those groups around you. You're going to be able to create coalitions. You're going to be able to manage teams. A team will always do better than an individual. And so if your child knows how to be a team player, that's what they get from maybe sports, maybe basketball, football, tennis, whatever sport you have them play. That's how they learn these things. And that person that has the team that understands systems, technology, and entrepreneurial thinking is going to end up becoming more successful than an individual. The D stands for delegation. Delegation is fighting that slave-like tendency that we have to do everything by ourselves. I talked to my wife. My wife is a smart Black woman and a strong Black woman, but she's also a Black woman who does all the work. She wants to do everything for everybody all the time. Give me a yes if you know somebody like that, or if you are that person. She's always wanting to do everything with the kids, everything with the house, everything with the, with paying, even paying the bills. I mean, everything, right? And I was like, no. You're not supposed to do everything. You're supposed to delegate. So I said, let's run this house like a CEO. You're a scholar. You should be doing research. You also deserve to have a nap. Let's get somebody to help with the kids so that you can get your nap, focus on your research, and do the thing that you love to do, the things that you're best at, instead of you trying to do everything for everybody all the time. A lot of us start our businesses the same way. We try to do everything for everybody all the time. We try to be the secretary with the marketing manager. We're trying to be the CEO. You're trying to do everything. Well, if you can't delegate, then what you're gonna do is you're gonna work yourself into an early grave, and you're gonna miss a ton of opportunities because you can't delegate. I knew a guy who was very, very well known on the internet because he could give great speeches, and everybody wanted to work with him. Everybody wanted to be a part of what he was doing, and unfortunately, he missed all those opportunities. Why? Well, because he would brag about how he was a one-man operation. He was a one-man show. It's just me, all by myself. I don't have an assistant. I don't have anybody, a representative. It's just me. Well, the problem is that he then created a bottleneck. Nobody could get to him because it was only him, right? So that means if he was giving a speech, there was nobody to take your call. If he was busy with one project, he couldn't do another one. So he missed millions of dollars in opportunities because he did not understand how to delegate. Why is it hard for traumatized people to delegate? Well, remember, I told you Black people are highly traumatized. It's hard for traumatized people to delegate because traumatized people don't have a lot of trust. Delegation requires you to find people that you trust and let them do the job so you don't have to do the job. So that's where things like therapy come into play. That's where learning how to overcome your own shit so you can become your best self is really important. And believe me, I'm right there with you. I'm high on the trauma scale. I took something called an ACEs trauma test, and I was super high on that trauma scale, and it was very embarrassing. But then I began to do the work. I began to sit down and work with somebody to help me overcome the trauma that was causing me to have an inability or difficulty trusting others. Okay. So ultimately, that's the sturdy model we teach our kids: systems, technology, entrepreneurship, relationships, delegation. The why doesn't stand for anything. It just makes it all come together. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here. My wife is waiting on me. We're about to go to the gym. My new book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It's an Amazon bestseller. So feel free to go to Amazon, or you can go to boycewatkins.com and take a look. And my wife's website, by the way, is coachingwithdralicia.com. She's a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work. She sees individuals, couples, and families. So if you have an interest in any of that or want to know what she does, feel free to go to coachingwithdralicia.com. All right, guys, I'm going to get on out of here. And I didn't even plan on talking for an hour, but I figured, why not? This is going to be fun. So have a good day. God bless you. Don't forget, this podcast is also on Spotify. You can look up the Dr. Boyce Breakdown if you want to find it on Spotify. I'll see you soon. Have a good day. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, Triple 10, 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.